Hello, Fred Douglas, and welcome to today's music lesson. So for today's lesson, we're going to be practicing drawing a treble clef that you see right here in the purple. And then we're going to do a little bit of practice reading these 5 lines and 4 spaces right here, so the music staff. We're going to do a little bit of practice reading notes on the staff. Now, this lesson is more for the upper grades, so if you're in 4th grade and 5th grade, this lesson is more suited for you. But back at Fred, all 3 grades did do a little bit of music reading. When we were practicing solfege, we did a little bit of music reading on here, as well as for the 4th and 5th grade. When we talked about the pentatonic scale, we did an activity where we did do some music reading here on the staff, and we wrote notes down ourselves and kind of unscrambled notes and did a little activity with it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our lesson for today. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to practice how to draw a treble clef. So that treble clef was what you saw in the purple, that weird swirly thing that you saw over here on this side. And the treble clef tells us what notes we're reading. And when you saw those lines over here on the side, the treble clef helps us to tell us what lines are which ones. So for the treble clef, we're going to practice drawing it. And for those of you in 5th grade who are in band, you, for some of the instruments, might also know what a bass clef is. So the bass clef looks something like this, a little like a backward 7 and 2 dots on the side. Alright, so some of you in 5th grade might be playing instruments that use the bass clef, but today we're just going to focus on the treble clef. So to start out, we're just going to draw a straight line up and down, and for this you can use any spare piece of paper. If you have a whiteboard, you could use that, or if you have a paper, pencil, anything you have around. Alright, so to start off, we're just going to draw a line going straight down your page. And now what we're going to do, this is optional, but just to get started, let's do this. I'm going to separate this line into 3 different parts. So into thirds. So for example, I'm just going to eyeball it. There's 1/3, I'm just going to draw a line right there, and then 1/3. So we have 1, 2, 3 equal parts, and it doesn't have to be perfect, just eyeball it. Alright, so the first step to making your treble clef is the top third of our line. We're just going to make a D out of this shape, so we're going to do a rounded line under here, and then it's going to hit right underneath that black line. So let me show you. It's like a D shape, except for the D is going to finish right underneath that line. And now we have to do this little swirly bit. So there's a few different ways you can do this. I'm going to show you the way I do it first. So after I have that D shape, I'm going to put my marker back down where it connects to this our main line. Now I'm going to do a circle, kind of like the opposite shape now, and hit underneath our 3rd line. And now I have to make kind of like a swirly. So like that. Alright, let me erase that and show you again. So we're going to draw our first line straight up and down. At the top, we're going to do a small D shape. So from the top of our line to kind of about a 1/3 down, make a little D shape. Now, not quite all the way at the end because we want a little bit of that line sticking out. We're going to do a backwards D, or maybe like a C shape like that. Then we're going to keep going on this side a little bit smaller. And then we're gonna finish our little swirl and just put our end right there. All right, so now I want you to practice a few times of drawing your treble clefs. So let's do a few together, and then you can do some on your own. So together with me, take a paper and a pencil. We're going to draw a line straight down from the top of our line to about a third down, just a little bit. We're going to do a D shape. And now let's try to do this time our swirl on the bottom, but this time let's do it in one go. So we want to do our whole entire swirl with one motion instead of drawing a line, picking up our marker, putting it down, and drawing another line. Let's try it one smooth motion. We're going to do this side, connect it on the bottom, go around. It's almost like a circle, but it doesn't quite meet up, and then it ends on that side. All right, let's do a few more together. Line straight down. This time, if you want, you can draw those meeting points. So let me do this with a different color marker so you can see a little bit better. So starting at the top, that's where our little D shape is going to connect. Then about a third down, just a little bit further down our line, that's where the bottom of the D is going to connect. And then at the bottom of the line, a little bit higher than the end, and that's where our swirl is going to connect. So there's two parts. There's our D shape at the top, and then there's our swirl at the bottom. And that is it. All right, let's do one more together. Line going straight down your page. D shape at the top. And then a nice swirl at the bottom, but remember, leave this little bit open. There's a little line at the bottom that has to stay open. So let's do our little swirl. And there we go. Actually, for this example, I think I made my D shape a little bit too big, but it still looks like a treble clef, so that's perfectly okay. I'll just remember for next time, maybe I need to make my D shape a little bit smaller. All right, this time we're going to practice drawing our treble clef, but we're going to try to do it in one smooth motion. So instead of measuring out where our D shape is supposed to be and our swirl is supposed to be, let's try it in one motion. So again, I'm going to draw a straight line going down my page. And now this time, try to imagine in your head. So my D shape will stop right here. Then I'm going to make my swirl. I'm going to leave a little bit at the end and then wrap it around. So let's try just one motion without stopping. The D shape, swirl, bring it down, leave a little bit at the bottom, wrap it around, and then we're done. All right, so on your own, try to draw a few of these without stopping. All right, so now we're going to practice drawing our lines on our paper and our spaces so we can practice reading our music notes. So in music class back at Fred, all of the grades practiced this a little bit. So if you remember, when we were practicing our solfege, for 3rd grade, we did do, mi, so, and then for 4th and 5th grade, we practiced the pentatonic scale, so those 5 notes. And for one of our days, we did an activity where we practiced writing our notes and did some unscrambling to figure out which notes were on the lines and which ones are on the spaces. So for this part, we're going to do all of our 5 lines and spaces on our paper. So first, I want you to take your hand, take your left hand, and if you can see, we're going to pretend that this is our music staff. So this is one way to remember it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines. So pretend your fingers are your 5 lines of the music staff. And then we're going to go in between. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. All right, so we're always gonna start counting from our bottom, from the pinky. All right, so counting from the bottom and going up, we have pinky as our first line, line 2, line 3, line 4, and line 5. Then if we look at the spaces in between, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to count bottom to top. So this right here would be space 1, space 2, space 3, and space 4. So all you need to remember for now is that we have 5 lines and then 4 spaces in between. And we always count starting off at our pinky or at the bottom of our page. So right now, I'm going to do my 5 lines and 4 spaces on my whole entire whiteboard. But for you, especially right now, if you have some blank or some lined paper, this would work great since you can already use the lines that are on there and then trace over them. But for this, I'm going to do it very big so you can easily see it in this video. Alright, so like I said, what you could do is starting at the bottom, you could put your hand out and then do little dots for each of your fingers so you know where to draw your lines. But I'm kind of just going to eyeball it. Starting at the bottom, I'm going to leave a little bit of room so you have some room at the top and bottom. So we're going to do 5 lines. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Alright, and actually I'm going to take my lines, maybe bring them a little bit further over here. Alright, so now that you have your 5 lines, on this side here, let's do a little numbering system. So remember, like I said, our pinky is always number 1. Our bottom line will always be number 1. So I'm just going to label 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the side. And then in the spaces, I'm going to do the same thing. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. Alright, so now let's practice drawing our treble clef right here on our lines or our staff. So it's going to be a little bit different than just drawing on a blank area and kind of eyeballing where everything is supposed to go. It's going to be a little bit different drawing it on the actual music staff. Alright, so same thing like before, we're going to start with a line going straight up and down, but our line is going to go a little bit above and a little bit below our staff. So something like that. There is a little bit hanging at the bottom and there's a little bit sticking out at the top. Alright, so this time we have a few different points here on our lines and spaces that will help us of where we're supposed to draw our shapes. So remember, we did our first D shape. Our first D shape will actually be connected right here on our 4th line. So let's do that first. Let's draw our D shape, remember, starting at the top and then connecting here on the line. And now our swirl will take up the rest of it. So let's do this half first. We're going to stay connected at the top. And then our bottom connected is going to go right there on the first line. Alright, so let's do this side of the swirl. Like that. And then our second half of the swirl, remember, like I said, it was a little bit smaller, so it's actually going to go 1 line down. So from the bottom, the first line, we're going to do that other half of the swirl and connect it right here to our middle line or our 3rd line. And then after that, we're just going to do that little loop at the end. Alright, so if it helps you, you can draw all these little connecting points and put a little dot or measure it out. Or if maybe this is just a little bit too confusing, a little too much, you can just eyeball your lines and your swirls. So let's do it again. Straight line going down. And make sure you leave some room in between your lines, because remember, we have this big swirl on the side here, so that'll stick out a little bit. Alright, so we're going to start drawing our D shape from the top and connecting to our fourth line. So we have D shape at the top. And we did this a few times before, and you did it on your own too, drawing this swirl. So we're going to do a big swirl going all the way down to the bottom. Smaller swirl on this side, and then our little tail sticking out. Alright, one more. So remember, a straight line, a little at the top, a little at the bottom. And now let's try to do this in one motion. So actually, let's do our D shape and then our swirl in one big motion. So D shape at the top, connect it. Now let's try to do our swirl in one big motion. Ready? Big swirl connected to the bottom, smaller swirl, and then our little tail at the end. Alright, so this time on your own, draw a longer staff, or maybe you can flip over on a different part of your paper or just move over a little bit. Draw your own staff with these 5 lines and practice on your own drawing this treble clef, remembering those connecting points. Alright, so I'm going to start again with my 5 lines. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I drew it a little bit more smaller, a little more squished, so we have some room to work here. Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and in one motion, or I guess it's in 2 motions. Our first motion is our straight line going down, and then our whole entire shape is the next one. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so now we're going to practice. Actually, I'm going to draw or write our numbers right here so you know what lines I'm talking about. Alright, so now we're going to practice actually drawing our music notes on the lines and spaces. Alright, so we're going to start a little bit easy at first. And we're not going to worry about what the lines mean or what the spaces mean. We're just going to practice actually drawing our notes. Alright, so let's do this. We're going to draw a quarter note or a ta on every single one of our lines. So we're going to draw. Let's start line 1. I'm going to do our note head. So when we write on our music staff, we have to make sure that our note head shows what line or what space we're on. So for our spaces, I'm going to do a note head right on the line, and then I'm going to just draw our little stem going up. Alright, now this time we have to move over a little bit. For line number 2, again, I'm going to draw that note head, and then our line going up. Line number 3, and our stem going up. And now this time it's a little bit tricky. So once we get to the middle here, we can still draw our note head like it is normally. But now we have to start drawing our stems going upside down because we're starting to run out of room up here. We don't have any more lines to go, so we're going to have to draw it going down. It's still the same exact note, it's just upside down because we're running out of room. And then same thing right here, we're going to go down. Alright, so practice, do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 lines. A quarter note on each of those lines. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and erase it. And then draw back my staff again. Alright, so this time we already practiced drawing our notes on the line. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes on the lines. This time we're going to do the same thing, but with a ta. We're going to write our notes in the spaces this time. So remember, we have 5 lines, 4 spaces. This time we're going to draw 4 notes in our 4 spaces. So starting at the bottom in space number 1, so this time we have to draw our note head and we have to fill out this whole entire space. So if it helps, maybe draw your circle first and then we can fill it in. Make sure it takes up that whole entire space. And then we can go ahead and draw our little stem going up. Now let's go ahead and do space number 2. Draw your outline first, make sure it fills up the whole entire space. Go ahead, fill it in, and then draw our stem going up. And this time, remember, when we did our lines, we had to draw our stems going downwards. So our middle point, our line number 3, once we go up here, this one, let's go ahead and draw our note head like normal. All right, now we have to draw our stem going down this time because it's above that middle level. So the bottom half, we draw stems going up. Top half, we draw stems going down. All right, one more note. Let's do number 4. Fill in that note head and then draw your stem going down.